You got it?
Okay.
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 Can we do like a rehearse it real quick?
Yes, you can rehearse it real quick. Yes.
Okay. This is Sonia Frontera from soniafrontera.com, and you are listening to Jeff Smith on Vroom, Vroom, Veer.
Whoop, whoop. That was, we don't need to do a take two. That was really good. But if you want, to do it again and sound,
that's fine.
You can make
if
a
you
fake voice.
Use it.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
Ooh, you are.
Please. This is Sonia.
I might even get a job offering out of this.
Yeah,
can you imagine?
You never know. Okay.
Text line.
I'm going to hit stop on this recorder right here. I'll be right back. I won't hear you for a sec. Okay.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Dr. Gary Lawrence, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going, man?
Well, doing great, Jeff. It's a joy to be your guest today, and it's quite an honor to meet you personally.
All right. Well, thank you. Honor's mine. So you are at rejectionjunkies.com, and talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business over there.
Well, I've had a major veer in my life.
Right.
As we all have. But anyway, I wrote my book, Rejection Junkies, back in 1995.
Wow.
And I had my counseling practice, marriage and family practice, for 23 years here in the Valley. And I also had a live radio talk show Monday through Friday for an hour, Dr. G, Life Mastery, Counseling. And so we retired from that in 2003. And I'd been on the radio for 20 years. I had my counseling practice for 23 years. And Jeff, Sylvia, and I, we planned our retirement for 25 years through mutual funds and stocks.
Right.
And after I retired, it took me 6 weeks to uncover the fact that we'd already lost 65% of our retirement portfolio in the stock crash. And it was like, this is not supposed to happen.
Hey.
Well,
right.
So I was 59 and a half at that time. So for the next 5 years, Sylvia and I, we lived on what we had left. Then, of course, the Great Recession hit in 2008 and 2009.
Right.
And my money ran out. I had no cash. I had no savings.
Oh, no.
And, it was...
Talk about a veer.
You talk about a veer.
Talk about a veer.
Big time. And so we went through bankruptcy in 2009. We lost the house that we lived in for 18 years.
Right.
We filed bankruptcy. We lost everything.
Oh, no.
And, going through bankruptcy was like looking over the chasm of poverty. And, there's a major difference between being broke and being poor.
Sure.
Poor is a mindset. Poverty is a mindset. And I don't do broke, Jeff. Okay.
Right.
And so at the age of 65, I decided to re-educate myself and learn how to become a successful real estate investor.
Oh, wow.
And so I got involved in an educational program with our company, Renatus. And in my first 14 months, I generated just under $200,000 in profits.
Holy cow.
And in a 2-year period of time, I became one of the top 10 income earners in the company. So at that time, I'm 67, but I'm back on the radio with real estate investing.
Okay.
And so I continued on the radio until January of 21. I had another major veer.
Yeah.
I had a stroke. I went to bed healthy and happy.
Right.
I woke up about 3 o'clock that morning and couldn't see and couldn't walk.
That's not good.
And so I was in Mayo Hospital and in rehab for about 14 days.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, Jeff, I was laying in my rehab hospital room, and the only view I had out my window was a brick wall.
Right.
Kind of like a little patio.
Okay.
But all you could see was the brick wall. Now I'm 77 years old at that time. Now I thought, okay, there's another wall in my life. I've got to veer around it some way. I've got to go over it. I've got to go around it. I got to dig under it.
Right.
But I will not let this be the end of my purposeful life. And without a purpose, you really have no reason to live. It's that simple.
That's true.
Okay.
Right.
And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to go back to my counseling and coaching.
Okay.
And so what I did, I updated my book, Rejection Junkies.
Okay.
And it became one of the best sellers on Amazon.
Holy cow.
And then I decided I'm going to become a life coach and continue to help men and women learn how to get free from the past so they can join us in the present and create the future they want, Jeff.
Wow. That is quite a story.
All wrapped up in a quick. Sylvia and I, when we were young, we've been married 55 years. And I'll never forget in college, Jeff, I went back for my second year of college, and
Yeah.
I was 22 years old, and I saw this beautiful brown-eyed brunette with olive skin.
Ooh.
And I said to my roommate, Bob, you see that beautiful brunette over there? And he said, yeah, what about her? And I said, I'm going to ask her out for a date. And I said, Bob, I'll probably end up marrying her. And he said, yeah, right. Well, I did. And 4 months later, we got married, Jeff. That was 55 years ago.
Wow. But where were you? What college?
That was Baptist Bible College in Springfield, Missouri.
Oh, nice. Okay. So
That's
you're from Missouri?
No, I'm from Indiana, but I went down to Missouri for college. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so after I graduated from college, we went to Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada.
Ooh, nice.
I did not know anybody, and I started a church there. And in 6 months, we had 170 people in our congregation.
Wow.
In 3 years, we bought 5 acres of land and built a 450-seat auditorium.
Holy cow.
And I had a weekly radio program then, and I had a once-a-week television program also.
Wow.
But I did not enjoy pastoring. I felt like a professional babysitter. Okay. And but
I get it. That's kind of like what the word means almost. I get it.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. But anyway, what's interesting is during my travels in the States, getting ready to go to Canada, I met a lot of pastors and their wives who were having marital problems. And so they would start coming to Winnipeg for me to counsel with them. And so I told Sylvia, I need to start a counseling practice. And she said, what do you know about running a counseling service? And I said, I don't know, but I'm going to start one.
I'm going to learn it as I go.
You got it. And so we moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1980.
Okay.
And we started a New Life Dynamics Counseling Center.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I love the name of your podcast, Vroom, Vroom, Veer.
Okay.
Because that title, that just embraces every human being on planet Earth.
It does, right? Yes. Yeah. Well, the vroom vroom is like when, it's like when you're sort of like moving in one direction,
right?
More or less not thinking about like the bigger picture, right? It's almost like you're kind of unconscious and you're just head down and focused. And then a veer is when, whether you choose it or not, something drastic changes, right?
Right. Well, and I say it like this: change, when left to chance, gives birth to more conflict.
Oh, exactly. Right.
Yeah. Either you make the change or the change is going to make you.
Very, very much so. So,
right.
Yeah. So like when you had a stroke, it's not like you were choosing to have a stroke.
Oh, no, not at all.
Right.
And
that's just something you have to deal with, right?
Well, absolutely. Having a stroke is not just for old people.
No.
There was a young lady who was 26 years old in my rehab hospital.
Wow.
She never drank, never smoked, never did drugs.
Right.
And she and her husband were out for a Saturday evening dinner celebrating their 3rd wedding anniversary. And she had a stroke, and God bless her heart, she still couldn't feed herself. And I was fortunate in the fact that I did not lose my ability to speak.
Right.
But I did lose my ability to see and to walk.
Okay.
But over the last 16 months, that's pretty well come back. I'm pretty well back to normal.
Right.
Of course, if you talk to my wife, Sylvia, she'll tell you I've never been normal. Okay.
Normal for Dr. G. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. And there are so many people who are living in the past. And I say it like this: patterns with the past poison your present and prevent your future.
Right.
Now stop and think about that. By the time we're 8 years old, 80% of our emotional patterns are formed, Jeff.
Right.
And by age 18, 100% of our self-image is formed.
Okay.
And so when you look at the average 40 or 50 or 60-year-old, you're actually seeing a young child trapped in an adult body.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They might have an education, so they might be more intellectually competent. They might be more financially stable.
Right.
But they still have the emotional patterns of a young child.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true because, you sort of like, have you ever had like the experience? I'm sure you did in your practice and coaching and stuff.
Yes.
But, I was in the Air Force 20 years.
Yeah.
And, working with, I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of people, right? It just feels like the drama of high school repeating itself over and over and over again.
Right.
That's still going on in my job now,
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I had a client and his wife come in for counseling. He was 80 years old. I was only 55 at that time.
Right.
And they had been married 55 years at that time.
Wow.
And I thought, my goodness, what can I tell them that's going to help them?
Sure.
So I shared with him, I said, Doc, by the time we're 8 years old, 80% of your patterns are formed. By the time you're 100% of your self-image is formed. And so he looked at me, he said, well, Dr. G, what you're telling me is I'm an 80-year-old, 8-year-old. And
right.
I said, yeah. And his wife reached over and patted him on the leg and said, see, sweetheart, I told you, you act like a little boy.
How did he take it?
Yeah. Well, and just because a person has a good income or has accumulated wealth or has a college education, it doesn't mean that they are free mentally and emotionally from their past.
True.
Okay.
Right.
And if I may, I'd like to take a few minutes and just go back to when Sylvia and I got married.
Please.
She was raised in a very strict Baptist home.
Okay.
Boy, they were in church every Sunday.
Right.
But from ages 7 to 12, her father was sexually abusing her. And her mother was horribly physically and emotionally abusing her. When she was 9 years old, she was beaten so bad that she could not get up and walk.
Oh, my goodness.
And so she handled her rejection by escaping. She would hide in the basement to get away from her mother.
Right.
Now, she was the oldest of 4 children. Now, I, on the other hand, was the youngest of 4 children.
Right.
And my father believed that another man impregnated my wife. And so I was literally the bastard child.
Wow.
And so there was a lot of physical abuse. Well, Jeff, I handled my abuse by surviving. I will fight back.
Right. Okay.
And so when I was 16 years old, I had a physical confrontation with my father. And that's when I left my home.
Wow. Okay. 16.
And
16.
At the age of 16, just a kid.
Right.
And so anyway, I handled my rejection by becoming a survivor. Sylvia handled her rejection by becoming an escaper.
Right.
And so when we met, we didn't understand the emotional setup that we were taking part in.
Right.
She needed someone to dominate her, and I needed someone to dominate.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
And I say it like this. Opposites attract, then they attack. And then
I think you're right.
Then they retract.
Okay.
They pull away from each other.
All right.
And I don't care what your nationality is. I don't care what your race is. I don't care what your educational background is. That happens to every married couple. Opposites attract, then they attack, then they retract.
Okay.
And it's at that retraction stage that they don't get some good, solid, practical input on how to solve their conflicts. They're headed for a major disaster. It's that simple.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I think early in my marriage, I should say, my wife and I went through a very similar dynamic.
Sure.
Now, I can't say I was physically abused, but, I had a big brother.
Chances are you were probably physically abused.
Well, I think obviously there was some physical abuse there.
Sure.
Right. But I mean, I don't think it probably exceeded the norm, right, of sibling rivalry. It's just, we're mammals. That's what we do.
That's what. Yeah, absolutely.
But I'll say this: like at some point, my brother and I did not really. We never really fought, but we talked about it.
Yeah.
And he said he was sorry. He's like, if you're mad about when we were kids and I was picking on you, I'm sorry. It was just, I didn't mean anything by it. You were just small and annoying. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm over it, dude. I'm a grown up now.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
Well, every once in a while when I had my counseling practice and I had a staff of 6 people, every once in a while I'd have someone come in and say, oh, we've never had an argument. And I just look at him and say, well, you've been smoking.
Sure. You've never had an argument.
Right. Yeah. Everybody has conflicts.
Right.
Your problem is not your problem. It's how you respond to your problem.
True.
That becomes your problem.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because problems are part of life. Problems are the problems are the fuel that give birth to positive change in your life if you approach it from that perspective.
Right. Just gaining information about your own response ability.
Right.
Your own responsibility.
Yeah, and absolutely. And Jeff, I was reading your biography and your background. You have been through a lot of change in your adult life.
I have.
And as I read those, I thought, I'm going to love talking with this guy because I think he has taken charge of the changes that he wanted to make in his life.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I am still veering. I like to think I change as often as I can.
Well, you're 53 years old. I turned 78 in a couple of months.
Right.
And I got to tell you something. I'm still veering.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to be one of these people that just sort of, you can die of comfort and convenience. I don't want to.
Oh.
I really don't want to. I don't want to be too comfortable.
Well, comfort becomes a coffin, doesn't it?
It does. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the lid is closed if you're living in your comfort coffin.
Yeah. When people used to say, I want to get you out of your comfort zone, I would go, why? I like being comfortable, right?
Yeah.
Leave me alone. I'm drinking beer and watching TV,
Right.
Right.
And, now do you do coaching for those who want to get help?
I do not. I do not coach. No, this is if you want coaching, it's free. It's this show.
Okay. Well, they can contact me. How's that?
There you go. Perfect. Yes. Yeah. Feel free.
And that's why I wrote the book, Rejection Junkies. When we were up in Winnipeg, we had a very successful church up there.
Right.
We became the fastest growing church in the province of Manitoba. And I had several of the provincial government officials that were attending my congregation. And, my marriage was falling apart.
Oh, no.
And Sylvia had decided to leave me.
Wow.
And my first response at that time was, oh, my goodness, what are people going to think of me?
Really?
Instead of being concerned about what my wife's needs were.
That makes
And so I told her, I said, honey, if you stay with me, I will find the solution to why we are having these conflicts. Because I didn't get married to get divorced, Jeff.
Right. I'm with you.
Okay.
Right.
And I found the solution. And that's what Rejection Junkies is all about.
Okay.
Understanding the rejection patterns from the past and why they control your present and why they prevent you from enjoying the future. And that's what life is all about.
Totally. Yeah. I went through, like I said before, I think, and this conflict continues, right? But what I'm learning now, the first couple years of our marriage, there was a lot of conflict.
Well, sure.
And then, I think what I was looking at was, it seemed like in my mind, can I do better? Right? Was like, if I get a divorce, I know I'm not going to stay, single forever. Right.
Right.
Right. And I already know there's a lot I love about my wife. there's some things that annoy me. and then I came up with this, I was like, but everybody is going to annoy me. Right. But not everybody, I'm not going to love everybody like I love her. So it's
right.
you have to find this acceptance, I think, is where I was going with that.
Well, and then you had an extra situation to deal with. She's Japanese, you're American.
Right.
So you had massive cultural background differences to deal with.
That still occurs.
Sure.
That still happens.
It does.
I can tell stories. Yes.
Well, I say it like this, Jeff. A man's ability to love his wife is the overflow of his own self-esteem. Okay. If a man does not have a healthy self-image,
that makes sense. Yeah.
He has nothing to give to his wife.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Now we're not talking about a egotistical type of self-image,
right?
But we're talking about a grateful acceptance of who you are and how God made you.
Right.
Okay?
Right. Being okay with you, basically.
Yeah. Be okay with you. That's well said, Jeff. Absolutely.
Right.
And so once I began to understand my weaknesses and my strengths, and that weaknesses are part of life. Hello, welcome to the human race.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay?
Right.
Yeah. But once I began to love Gary unconditionally,
right,
then and only then could I begin to focus on what my wife's mental and emotional, sexual, and material needs were.
Right. Okay.
And begin to meet those needs in a healthy, satisfying way.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so that's when our marriage started turning around. And in my book, Rejection Junkies, there is so much understanding given to the reader about how they can literally reposition themselves emotionally to live a life of peace and sanity and one of purpose.
Yeah, and it's like I'll give a brief story, and it'll go somewhere. Promise.
Okay.
So one of our recurring fights, I realized like not long ago that it was all me. So that's always a good one, right? So then I realized I can just stop doing that. But let me give you some of the highlights.
Sure, I'm anxious to hear it.
It's really silly, but it's emblematic of dumb little fights that you have with your wife. So I got caught up on, I think it was a linguistic barrier, number one, and a number two of I like to not compete competitively, if that makes sense. I would rather just say, okay, I admit defeat and you win.
Okay.
I would like you to say these words. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I would like you to say these words. And then, so like, I think the barrier that I learned was my wife, if I say the words like, okay, this is just my opinion, or this is how I feel before I state my opinion, then she is disarmed to the point where, okay, he's not telling me he's right and I'm wrong. He's just telling me how he feels. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So as soon as, we were going through this thing where I was just like demanding she say certain words. She's never going to say those words when I demand they be said. But if I back up and say, this is how I feel and this is what I think, I just want to be heard, then she'll say, oh, okay, I hear you. Right?
Yeah.
Does that make does anything make sense? Does any of that make sense?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a few questions, Jeff.
Sure.
I'll give you a little bit of coaching live on air.
Please. Yeah.
Which of the two of you is the most dominant?
That's
the most decisive, the quicker to respond. Which person is the?
I think I'm probably more decisive.
Okay.
It's hard to say that though, because my wife is also bossy too.
Yeah.
But she's not. She's very much not decisive. Like, she spends a lot of time thinking and weighing and she has to touch everything, so her decision making is slower than mine, if that's what you're getting at.
Okay. Well, I say it like this: in every marriage,
Hmm.
there's a parent and there's a child.
Okay.
Okay. It has nothing to do with gender.
Right. Okay.
Okay. And but from the little bit you shared with me, I think you're the personality that likes to avoid conflict.
I do.
You just want to be heard.
Right.
And she wants to presume that you should behave in a certain pattern.
Maybe
Maybe.
that might be true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, and
Yeah.
I'm not drawing conclusions.
Right.
Jeff,
Right.
okay?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I definitely was the parent. Sylvia was the child.
Okay.
And when I learned that I needed to stop controlling the child, that's when peace began to come into our relationship.
Interesting. Okay.
And it takes a
Interesting.
long time for people to understand their personality strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
See, there's four basic personalities. First of all, you have the sanguine personality.
Okay.
Their key word is popular. I want everybody to like me.
Okay.
Okay, everything's fun.
Right.
Okay,
I'm kind of like that.
let's laugh and party.
Right. Yes.
Okay, and then you've got the choleric personality. Their key word is power. I will be in control. We will do it my way.
Right.
Okay.
That sounds like my wife.
Okay, and then you've got the perfect melancholy. Their key word is perfection. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing right.
Right. I'm not that.
Okay. And then you've got the phlegmatic. The phlegmatic, their key word is peace. Okay. Peace at any price. They avoid conflict.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I was a combination of choleric and melancholy,
Okay.
the power and the perfection.
Okay.
Sylvia was the combination of sanguine and phlegmatic.
Okay.
Okay. So the bottom line is when people get married, I don't care who you are, where you're from, what your background is.
Right.
Every marriage is a setup for conflict.
It is. That's true.
So you have to get
That's true.
You have to get a new toolbox to work from and learn
Okay.
how to solve your conflicts.
Right. I
Okay.
agree.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably, if I had to guess, I think I'm a little bit of the funny guy, and then I also want to think that I'm like peace too.
Yeah. The sanguine phlegmatic.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh my gosh, Jeff, I've been married to you for 55 years.
So, do you remember the movies with Peter Sellers, the Pink Panther movies?
Oh yeah.
And how he would hire that his assistant Kato to like surprise attack him?
I don't remember that. Go ahead.
So that's so he had this guy, and it was his man Kato, right? And
Okay.
in every movie, at some point, Kato would jump out of the bushes and attack him, and they would do a karate fight, right? and then he would answer the phone, and then you remember Kato is actually working for Dr. or Professor Clouseau or Inspector Clouseau, right? So Clouseau hires Kato to keep him on his toes.
Okay.
So in my life, my private conversation in my head, Yayoi is my Kato, right? My wife is Kato, right?
Okay.
So she's like the perfect person that I have this spiritual deal with to annoy me to no end. So I can relax into that, right? So I can find my peace, right? Because she's not going to stop annoying me. But I can accept it, and I can increase my responsibility.
And how long have you been married, Jeff?
We have been married since 1993, and I'm bad at math, like 28 years, I want to say.
28 years.
Yeah.
So here's the bottom line. You have become so adjusted to her annoying you, you can't live without it.
I love it. I really do.
And that's a healthy thing. And that's a healthy thing.
Right.
You see?
Yes.
So, and what I'm saying by that is you have learned how to respond on a positive level to the conflicts in your relationship.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's almost like I now remember in the past getting annoyed, right?
Yeah.
At this thing that no longer annoys me. Now she's a master, right? She's a master annoyer. So she'll keep coming up with new and interesting ways to keep me on my toes. That's not going to stop, but I can keep growing. So that's why I like it. Yeah. If that makes any sense.
It sure does. Yeah. And they say marriage is a wonderful institution if you like institutions.
That's a good one. I like that.
So, Jeff, can I ask you a question?
Yes, you can ask me a question.
What set of circumstances led you to start doing a podcast?
Interesting. So I'll try to shorthand it. For a while, I think the impetus was I was trying to quit my job and make money somehow online without actually doing much of anything, if that makes any sort of sense. I didn't actually want to work. I just wanted to sit home and do a thing and then have people give me money, which doesn't actually work. But anyway,
you mean to tell me your email inbox is not full of people who are wanting to send you money?
No, the cash never showed up.
Yeah. Okay.
So my first crack at that was writing a blog. I was thinking I'll write a blog, I'll share my wisdom, as they say. And then if enough people show up, I'll just sell Google ads on that website, right? The idea of a high traffic website can bring in some passive income. Turns out I don't really like writing that much. It's lonely and boring for me.
Right.
So then I saw that people were having podcasts that theoretically someday make money, right?
Sure. So
that was really like, I like talking. I like having conversations more than I like writing, right?
Yes.
Because it's interactive, right? Like I would never do a podcast alone and just talk to myself or talk to the audience. Yeah. I get energized by meeting new people and interacting and conversing. So that's fun for me. I would do it for free, right? And I do. Right. Actually, I pay to do it. I am now paying to do this podcast. So that's why.
That's great because that's great because I consider it a real honor to get to meet you today. And I'm sure that there's a lot that I can learn from you when it comes to the podcast world.
Oh yeah, for sure. If you ever need help, it's there's a lot of technical stuff, I would say.
Yeah. I'll bet there is. Yeah. Well, when I had my counseling practice, I had an office manager and I had a receptionist. And so I actually started my counseling practice in October. In 1980 in Albuquerque. Right. Then I expanded my office to Phoenix in 89. So I've had two offices. Right. And so they did all the internet work for me.
Good.
So inadvertently, I kept myself ignorant from the internet.
Nothing wrong with that.
Right. But anyway.
Eventually, you might have to learn, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I did live radio, and so that was my way of reaching out to everyone.
Yeah.
And
so
live radio.
Do you like getting on the internet now? You're on it right now.
Oh yeah. I'm doing a lot of podcast interviews. And,
right. You're on a Zoom call. You did it.
Right. Yeah.
And my dad is 83 and I have been on Zoom with my dad. So good for him. Actually, I think he's 84. Yeah. Just turned 84. Yeah. Right.
So as I began to really study and find out what the underlying conflict was in my marriage,
right,
I began to understand something about the root of bitterness.
Okay.
In the scriptures, we're told to search very diligently, lest the root of bitterness springs up and troubles you, and thereby many be defiled. Now, the word bitterness is not a happy word.
No.
Okay. Anger is a response. Okay. Bitterness is a resentment.
Right.
And
okay.
So I give some definitions on bitterness that are not in Webster's dictionary.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah. Bitterness is an inward resentment. Bitterness is a wounded spirit. Bitterness is a fear, a guilt. You show me someone that makes you feel guilty all the time, and I'll show you someone you have a root of bitterness towards.
Okay.
Bitterness is an anxiety. Bitterness is an avoidance. Bitterness is a sense of abandonment.
Okay.
And so when I began to understand how bitterness was the rope that kept us connected, but it was also the rope that I was hanging myself with.
Yeah. Yes.
I had to find a solution on how to get free from that bitterness.
Okay.
Okay. For an example, I was very bitter towards my father-in-law.
Right.
He sexually
okay.
abused my wife.
Right.
3 months after we were married, I came home from a road trip. And it was about midnight. I wasn't supposed to be home until the next day. And I took a shower and got me something to eat and got in bed with my lovely wife and began to embrace her and caress her. And she literally jumped out of the bed so fast, she slammed herself against the wall.
Wow.
And Jeff, for the next 4 hours, she sat there with her knees up to her chest saying, "Please don't tell my dad what you're doing. My daddy told me never to let another man touch me like that."
Wow.
Well, that was my introduction to her sexual abuse.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then I began to understand when someone marries someone that's been sexually abused, they become the victim of the second order.
Okay.
Does that
makes
make sense?
Yep. I get where you're going. Right.
Because our sexual relationship could never be healthy.
Right. Right.
And so when I began to understand that what my father-in-law did was not the problem, but it was my bitterness towards him that was the problem.
Right.
That kept me connected to her past.
Right.
See, for an example, and Jeff, I'm going to be real bold here. I mean, you're a nice fellow, and I'm enjoying our conversation.
Good.
But the bottom line is, in your 28 years of marriage, you have become connected to some of the issues in your wife's past.
Sure. Of course.
And just like Sylvia, she's become connected to some of the issues in my past.
Right.
Okay. Because the bottom line is, when you and I got married, we married our wives' families.
Yes, we did.
We embraced their background, which we knew nothing about.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Right.
And so, you know, I love speaking publicly, and I used to have conferences called the University of Successful Living.
Okay. Oh, nice.
And I would say, now I'm going to ask you all a question. I want you to be honest.
Okay.
How many of you have woken up in the morning about 6 o'clock in the morning and looked over at that person next to you in bed, said, "How did I end up with this person?"
Yeah. I think we all have, right? If
Every hand is raised.
Yeah. It reminds me of that song.
Yeah.
There's a song that line is in by the Talking Heads.
Oh, okay.
Who is my beautiful wife?
Yeah. What am I doing here? You know,
right. How did I get here?
Right.
Yes.
Well, and your whole podcast, Vroom, Vroom, Veer, is all about helping people equip themselves for the veering that's
Correct.
going to take place in their life.
Correct.
And I think this is a great source of information, Jeff. I really do. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. You know, I think like we were talking earlier before the show started, the social media sort of people don't post things that they don't want other people to see.
Right.
But that means that people get this skewed view of they're not good enough, because look at everybody, you know, they're on a boat, you know, or they're on the beach and they're buying something fancy. Right. And all you see is the highlights and the shiny stuff.
Right. Yeah. Look at me. I'm down on the beach today. You know.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
I've got this fancy car and this beautiful wife, but that's not all that's going on. Right. This is
absolutely. And what's that old saying? Real life can be a real beach.
There you go. And everybody goes through it, right? We've all had, you know, things that we're not proud of, right? We all go through these things where we didn't respond correctly. We're ashamed of our actions. We fail. You know, where we
and unfortunately, many people, they measure their success in life by what they have and not who they are.
Right.
They measure their success in life by what they do, not who they are.
Right. Right.
Okay. And I say it like this, and a lot of people do things very negative, but sometimes our behavior betrays our character.
Always.
Sometimes what we do betrays who we really are. Yes.
Always. Yeah. I like, I was talking to some coworkers, and one of my coworkers was in conflict because her husband's brother was living with them. And she was thinking it was well past due time that he be moving on. And she was trying not to let that leak out. And I was like, oh, he knows. He knows. Why? Why would he know? I didn't tell him. I'm like, okay, because he's human. And, he can see you say a thing and not mean it. Everybody knows that, that your actual feeling toward a situation, regardless of what you say about it, comes out, right?
Right.
It comes out in your attitude, in your emotions, in your body language. He knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, Jeff, I ask men all the time. I'll say, how many times have you come home after a hard day at work?
Yeah.
And you walk in the front door, and just by the way your wife walks from the stove to the refrigerator, you know something's wrong. And
you did it.
Yeah, and you did it. And every man agrees that happens. Now, here's a truth. Here's a hidden truth, Jeff. Okay. Husbands respond to their wife's attitude, their inward attitude. Mm-hmm. That's why the man can say, "What's wrong, honey?"
Right.
"Oh, nothing's wrong."
Right.
"Something's bothering you." "Why do you think something's bothering me?" "Oh, just the way you walked across the room like an elephant."
Right.
So the husband responds to his wife's attitude, but the wife responds to her husband's actions or lack of actions.
Right. That's true. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so once a man and a woman can come to understand that information about their relationship, then and only then are they going to begin to be able to make the repairs they need to.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That's interesting.
For an example, my wife is very phlegmatic. She does not make a decision like I do.
Right.
I would ask her, "Honey, what do you think about this?" And about an hour later, I'll say, "Honey, you haven't given me an answer yet." She says, "Well, I'm thinking on it." So a couple of days later, I'll say, "Have you come up with an answer to that question I asked you 3 days ago?" "No, let me think about it some more." And I just want to say, would you hurry up and make a decision?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But now I'm at peace with that. When I ask her opinion on something, I know it may be a week before I get an answer.
Right. You just kind of have to accept that. Right.
And that's just who she is. It doesn't offend me.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
I have a similar, I don't know if you've spent much time around Japanese people.
No.
But they're very, my wife, maybe I can't, group everybody. All Japanese people aren't my wife, but my wife being Japanese, I have this example of one. She's very deliberate in everything she does. Right. So it bothered me for many years to watch her check out at the grocery store because she just takes her time. She gets her book out. Right. And, she's counting out pennies. She's giving exact change, right? And I'm just annoyed. I'm like, really? and I'm okay with it now. I've nobody else is. It's only me, right? The cashier is just happily, waiting. Very patient, right?
Yeah.
She, and everybody behind us waiting. Patient, right? I'm the only one. In my mind, I'm like, hurry up, honey. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah. Well, see, Jeff, God knew that you needed her.
Exactly. That was one. That was one of her Cato moments for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and from your background, and I think it's all good because you made changes for the positive.
I have.
Okay.
Yes.
And I wonder how many times, if I could talk to your wife, that she sat back and thought, "Oh my gosh, what's he doing now?"
Oh my goodness. That would be a very long list.
Well, Jeff, maybe you and I should open up our own coaching practice together.
Yeah, maybe.
We're opening up an office in Vegas.
Why not?
And God knows there's a lot of neurotics up there.
Oh gosh. You would stay very busy.
Well, as a matter of fact, and I want to go back to something when Sylvia and I were separated for 6 weeks.
Oh, no.
And it was at a point where I thought, I'm going to go ahead and file for divorce.
Right.
I'm tired of dealing with problems.
Right.
And so I decided if I do end up getting divorced, I'm going to move to Vegas and open up a counseling center.
Okay.
because Vegas needs counselors, and I'm a good counselor.
Right.
You know, but
They do.
But here's the point of realization that I reached. I'm going to learn how to love my wife like Christ loved the church and gave himself for it.
Oh, that's a good.
I'm going to learn how to submit to her needs. I'm going to stop resenting her weaknesses and start responding to her strengths.
That's good. Wow. You learned a lot.
I learned a lot.
You learned a lot.
And I'm not by nature a humble man. Not at all.
Okay. Right. Wow.
Okay. But I was thinking about writing a new book, Jeff. I'm going to call it Humility and How I Obtained It.
Oh, I want to read that book.
Well, I got a new one that just came out for print. It's called The 10 Greatest People in the World and How the Other 9 Came to Know Me.
Oh, that's a killer title. You should, if you have a blog, that would make a really good blog post title. You don't actually have to write the post.
Well, and let me share this thought with all of your audiences.
Sure.
There's going to come a time when their circle of influence is going to decrease.
Right.
There's going to come a time where their circle of social influence is going to decrease.
Right.
And if they're not at peace with themselves, they are headed towards a traumatic time in their life where they will completely lack value of any level.
Okay. Right.
And having come through this stroke, I mean, going through bankruptcy in 2009 and losing everything was quite a traumatic experience.
Yes.
So when I was 65, I decided to re-educate myself and learn how to become a successful real estate investor.
Right.
And then at the age of 77, I had that stroke. And I told my wife, I said, honey, I refuse to live without a purpose.
Right. Okay.
I will find the purpose that God wants me to have in my life.
Okay. Right.
And so now it's life coaching. That's what I'm all about.
Right.
Helping men and women find that purpose and that plan for their future in their life.
Yeah, you need the purpose. You need the reason for you to be. Right. Yeah.
Well, and Jeff,
it doesn't necessarily need to make you money. That's a thing that people, it may or may not. I mean, but it needs to be the intrinsic sort of like reason that you keep going. Right. Right. Like a Viktor Frankl kind of situation, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big time. Big time. Well, the bottom line is money's good to have, but money just helps you live a happier life.
Yeah.
And I tell folks when people would come to me for coaching, they'll say, I just want to be happy. And I say, well, you've got the wrong guy to coach you then. They'll say, what do you mean, Dr. G? I say, well, I don't want you to be happy. Oh my goodness. Well, why not? Well, here's the thing. Happiness is the emotion you experience as a result of your circumstances. I have a new car. I have a new house. I have a new job.
Right.
I have a new wife.
Right.
I'm happy. I want you to become joyful. Joyfulness is the emotion you experience in spite of your circumstances.
There you go. That's a really good distinction.
Oh, right. That's a major difference, isn't it?
Right. Yes. You know, and that's another thing that I want to bring up right now with the world the way it is. And so you've got this constant influx of negativity everywhere you look on TV and the internet. And it's real easy. And also, as mammals, we have a bias towards, we'll see something that's negative and give it more weight in our mind. That doesn't mean we can let go of our responsibility to be joyful.
Right.
It's a responsibility.
It is.
It is. We're responsible to face all that negativity out there and stay and say, it's still my responsibility to find joy every day.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're 100% spot on. In my real estate investing, I learned how to take ownership and control of real estate with none of my own money, none of my own credit.
That's great.
And do it legally.
Yeah.
And I've had people in the past say, well, Dr. G, You just don't understand how broke I am.
Right.
And I just want to take them by the head and shake them and say, hey, I'm the guy that went through bankruptcy.
Right.
I'm the guy that lost his house to foreclosure.
Right.
I'm the fellow
Right.
that lost everything.
You've been there.
But I learned principles. Okay. I learned truth on how to change my financial situation,
Right.
how to change my mental and emotional situation.
Right.
And that's what we're all about at rejectionjunkies.com, Jeff.
Right. Right.
We're here to help men and women change their present so they can create a better future.
Yeah. Amen. And get free from the past.
Right. Yeah. Get
Hey.
free from the past.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of people, they carry their past around in a bag over their shoulder, and they're kind of proud of how contentious and rotten that odor is. And they say, hey, you smell the stuff in my bag? That's my past. Let me make you miserable too.
Yes. Yes. Please put that bag down.
Well, and you and I are here. We're laughing a lot about this.
Right.
But it's fun to be free from the past, isn't it, Jeff?
It is. It is for sure. Yeah. I heard another podcast, and I can't remember. It was a Tim Ferriss episode. He was talking to, I think it was former CEO or CEO of Lululemon, the company.
Okay.
Real amazing dude. But he came up with this idea of, I want to plan my future as if I do not have a past.
Ooh, that's good. I love that. Yeah.
Right. I knew you would love that. I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. I've never even had that idea, right? Like, I am a being without a past. How do I plan my future from here? I thought that was an amazing idea. I haven't tried it yet.
Well, and the fact is, all of us have the past.
Right.
And if you don't get rid of the past, you're not going to enjoy the present. You're not going to create a future that you want to design yourself.
Right.
And it goes back to that word change.
Yep.
Change, when left to chance, gives birth to more conflict.
That's true.
If you don't change, things won't change.
Right.
So what's the bottom line? Either you make the change or the change will make you.
Amen to that.
Because I'll guarantee you, things are going to change.
That's right. You better learn how to veer, because it's coming. All right, Dr. G. I was going to say Dr. Gary, but Dr. G.
Well, that's fine.
Dr. Gary, Dr. G. This has been a pleasure and an honor. You're a wonderful speaker, and I think you've got a lot of great ideas to share over there at rejectionjunkies.com. So how can folks best get in touch with you? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the best way to get in touch with me is go to my website, rejectionjunkies.com. That's Rejection Junkies, JUNKIES.com.
Got it.
And there is a quiz there. It doesn't cost anything. It's absolutely free.
Right.
And they can take the quiz, and I will get the results. But also in the upper right of my homepage, there's a contact button.
Okay.
Where they can contact me, Jeff. And if they will include their phone number, I will give them a personal call, and I will give them a free 30-minute interview.
Oh, nice.
That's absolutely free.
Right.
And I spend time with people on a personal level to help them begin to make plans for the journey into their future.
That sounds like a blast.
Now, if they're just looky-loos, if they're just saying, well, maybe I might want to talk to Dr. G, I'm going to encourage them, please don't waste my time.
Got it. Okay.
Right. So, but I'm here to help those who are serious.
That they're ready to commit.
Right. Yes. And Jeff, by the way, before we close, I would like to maybe contact you this next week and spend a little bit of time with you getting some coaching on the internet. How would that be?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. And so I appreciate it. Jeff, you've been a great conversationalist. I really have enjoyed meeting you. I think you've got an awesome podcast. I think it's great.
Thank you, sir. All right. Well, you have a wonderful Friday, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Goodbye, Jeff.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.